But one thing I know for certain is that the angels in heaven are rejoicing right now.
Amen.
And it is indeed a wonderful day that we have a new brother. Thankful for Dwight for his desire to answer the call. And make sure, many of you have already, but make sure if you haven't had the opportunity that you don't leave here today without having the opportunity to speak to Dwight and encourage him and let him know that we're here to help him any way we can. We're going to talk about this afternoon. We're back in the Gospel of Mark once again. And we're going to talk about the miraculous healing that is this miraculous onslaught that leads to the end of Mark chapter 1. There's one more section to go before we end Mark chapter 1. And every chapter won't be quite this broken down. There won't be basically 6 lessons per chapter. But this one, it really is kind of the emphasis of the kickoff. What was it really about? And so you're going to see a miraculous onslaught. But what I want you to understand is why. What's the purpose of this? What is Jesus really trying to get across? And so you remember last week that Jesus, he cast the demon out of the man in the synagogue, something that was very important because that displayed his power as king over the spiritual realm, over Satan. Mark started off the gospel by saying and identifying Jesus as the Son of God. And if you're going to make a claim like that, you have to be able to back it up. You can't just say that and not back it up. The world in that day was filled with false prophets, false healers. They'd been around from the beginning of time. But that was just the beginning of the miracles that are recorded in Mark's gospel. We're about to read about just an onslaught, all-out blast of miracles across the Galilee region. Because Mark 1:28 tells us Jesus has become very popular. People want to be near him. Right? They're coming to Jesus to worship him, right? I wish. They're coming to Jesus because they want to show. They want to see something. They want to hear something. But Jesus' purpose is the importance in this. It was not to put on a show. It's what he said in Luke 19:10. He came to seek and to save the lost. People wanted to be wowed. He wanted them to be holy. They wanted to be fed with food. He wanted them to be fed with the Word. Jesus wanted them to be saved. That was always the root behind what he did. So the miracle stood to prove a purpose that what Jesus said, he said with authority. If you doubted the authority, well then here's a display of power to prove the authority. Whether it was sickness, disease, the spiritual realm, demons, nature itself, they all obeyed Jesus. So let's read the whole section that we're going to look at, Mark 1:29 through 39. And then we'll break them down a little bit from there. Mark 1:29 through 39. Actually, I'm going to back up. We'll include verse 28. Verse 28, and immediately his fame spread throughout all the region around Galilee. Now, as soon as they had come out of the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. But Simon's wife's mother lay sick with a fever, and they told him about her at once. So he came and took her by the hand, lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her, and she served him. At evening, when the sun had set, they brought to him all who were sick and those who were demon-possessed. And the whole city was gathered together at the door. Then he healed many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. He did not allow the demons to speak because they knew him. Now in the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, he went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." But he said to them, "Let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also, because for this purpose have I come forth." And he was preaching in their synagogues throughout all Galilee and casting out demons. So remember that in our last section, Jesus makes his way into Capernaum, which is going to be his home base now, a very prominent city on the sea. And as was his custom, he goes straight into the synagogue. He came into contact with a demon-possessed man. But when we pick up with this, they're leaving the synagogue, and there's a lot of very important details that get mixed in this. And if you're not careful, we'll miss them. So it says now, as soon as he leaves the synagogue, they enter into Simon and Andrew's house. But Simon's wife's mother lay sick. So they're still in Capernaum. They go to Peter's house where his wife's mother is sick. Well, this just got a bit awkward now. Because apparently the first pope was married, which kind of puts a stain on the whole celibacy thing amongst the papacy today. In fact, this will really blow your mind if you doubt that Peter was indeed married. 1 Corinthians 9:5 tells us that not only was he married, but Peter's wife would even travel with them. So yes, he was married. So they're at Peter's house, and I enjoy things like this, so hopefully you do too. I know we've got some that have been over there, so y'all have probably seen this if you were over there. If you haven't, you can look this up online and say they believe they know where Peter's house was. And if that's the case, it's a pretty impressive structure. But actually, I tend to believe that this is in fact Peter's house. Only because immediately after the find, they're also finding all these writings that would correlate to them saying, hey, this is where Peter lived. Now, does that mean that's the case? No. But this is just steps from the synagogue where Jesus left from. It's about a 2-minute walk towards the sea. And so if this is indeed Peter's house, that would mean that Peter was a pretty successful fisherman. And so as they enter the house, that picture is well and good, but let's get back to what really matters, the Scripture. As they enter the house, they're told that Peter's mother-in-law is sick. Now Mark's not a physician, Luke is. Luke, the physician, gives us more detail, saying that what she has is a great fever. Typhoid fever was very common in that period, but we don't know what was really bothering her. But great fever doesn't mean she has a headache. Marshall, I know, has a headache earlier today. I have a headache. He's sitting right over there. But we're used to headaches. This is not a headache. We're told that she's basically debilitated with this high fever, which is an infection or a virus. So they tell Jesus, and again, in Luke's account, it's not just they tell Jesus, they make the request, Lord, can you heal her? And clearly, according to the next verse, Jesus agrees. And you read this like it's the simplest thing in the world. So he came and he took her by the hand, and he lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her and she served him. It's in there almost like a footnote, like it's just a simple little thing. Jesus healed her and immediately the fever left her. But Luke's account once again gives a bit more information. Again, he's the physician of how this happened. Listen to Luke 4 verse 39. So he stood over her and rebuked the fever. And it left her, and immediately she arose and served them. Jesus did not miraculously conjure up some Tylenol. And the fever just broke, and immediately she felt better. He rebuked the fever, and just like the demons, the fever left. Got away from there. So much so that she's made completely whole. No fever whatsoever, no sickness, no infection. Just think about when you're sick. How long does it take you to get over it once you start feeling better? Do you just spring back up and you're in good shape? No, I mean, you're weak, you drag around for a while, and that's just the ladies. Imagine the men. I'm just kidding. She felt immediately 100%. And she got up and she started to serve them. So when Jesus healed you, you were healed. Nothing else happened. It wasn't, I'm going to heal you, and I'm going to be very careful not to get on a lot of tangents with this, because this is going to touch on a very sore subject for me. But when Jesus healed you, you were healed. There was no, well, I heal you, and in about a week you're going to feel better. It was immediate. Now, this kind of news is going to spread. I mean, she just jumps up. People are there. They're seeing this. She starts taking care of the group. So not only does Jesus have power over the spiritual realm, he also has power over the physical realm. Now, let's just see if we put our heads together, if we can't figure this out. If Jesus has power over the physical realm, this information is going to spread. I wonder what's going to happen with this information. What are people going to do when they find out that Jesus has the ability to heal? Well, Mark tells us in verse 32 that at evening, when the sun had set, they brought to him all who were sick and those who were demon-possessed. Now, we could ask the question, why did they wait till evening? Why, if you hear this good news, this incredible news that, hey, Jesus can heal, why would you wait? Well, it's the Sabbath. They're Sabbath-keeping Jews. And with it being the Sabbath, the fourth commandment, keep the Sabbath holy, they had to wait until 6 p.m. when the sun went down, and it technically changed over to Sunday. Their calendar went 6 p.m. to 6 p.m., not midnight to midnight. And so at 6 p.m. it became Sunday. And so as soon as it became 6 p.m., they just rushed the house with all the sick, everybody that was sick. And you remember how serious they took the Sabbath. Remember the accusations that are going to be made against Jesus for performing miracles on the Sabbath. And they set all these rules around the Sabbath. And they even classified healing as a work. But as soon as the people were able, they start to just flock to Peter's house, knowing that's where Jesus was staying. The outer courtyard around the house, and you kind of get a glimpse when you look at the picture. There's a big outer courtyard where they just kind of swarmed the house. And so much so that it tells us that people couldn't hardly come or go. And the passage tells us that the whole city was there to see Jesus. So it's safe to say that the word had clearly gotten out. Now, Matthew's account gives us a little bit more detail. We're kind of bringing in all the pieces of the puzzle. That not only did all of the sick and possessed come to them, but that they're all healed. That many, many people came, and they were all healed. And in fact, verse 33 says, and the whole city was gathered together at the door. So if someone is healing, they're all coming. You're either going to take advantage of that, or you're going to just come to see a show. Either way, they're flocking to him. To that, Mark gives us an overview of this miraculous onslaught. Verse 34. Then he healed many who were sick. Well, now right there, it almost sounds like a contradiction, because Matthew said all. Mark says many. Is it all or many? Well, it's not a contradiction. Many came, and of the many that came, all were healed. So Mark says that he healed many who were sick with various diseases, cast out many demons. And here's the phrase from our last section again. And he did not allow the demons to speak because they knew him. That again, I said this last week, so I'm not going to go through the whole lesson all over again. But what do you think they were going to say? Well, they'd probably say what the one said in the synagogue. I know who you are, Son of the Most High God. And so Jesus would not permit them to speak. He didn't want them saying, thou art the Son of God. It's not hell's place to affirm the Son of God. Demons know who he is. He is the Son of God, but Jesus does not want any affirmation of his deity by them. Jesus wants proclamation of who he is to be from his church. A little side note there. So Jesus would cast them out. And again, this is just an onslaught. I mean, we're not even told how many miracles are taking place every day now. I mean, this is just a huge explosion of miracles across the Galilee region. He cast them out. The demons, of course, weren't happy about it. You don't read one time in the Bible where the demon comes up and says, hey, listen, thanks, Jesus, I really wasn't enjoying this host. You don't read about any of this. He would banish them, silence them, and when the Lord told them to be quiet, they didn't say another word. They knew their fate, which would be, again, another side note. Imagine if people were more like that. So with much of this attention now coming to Jesus, and again, we're just getting a blasted statement. It's not, here's detail by detail by detail of what he did. It's just, boom, miracles, massive miracles. Do you understand that in the life of Jesus, he basically, almost to the point, eradicated sickness in that region? Everyone was coming. Every time someone would come, he would heal them. And so this is getting the attention of the people, and so it's likely, you would likely think, that he's going to now just sit back, let everyone come to him, take it all in. It's going to be easy now. Just sit back and enjoy it. Everybody's going to come. And if he's after a physical kingdom, as our millennial group friends would say, well, then this is a perfect opportunity. But that's not the case. See, even in John chapter 6, they're going to try to take Jesus by force and make him their king, and he departs from them. He gets away from them. Just as he's about to do here. So notice what happens. And then, again, this blows a lot of people's minds. Now, in the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, Jesus went out and he departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. The first part of Jesus' calendar day was always set aside for prayer, which again is another very good example for us. And in fact, if you go back and you look at every major example of New Testament miracle, calling, revelation, anytime something big happens, you find Jesus pray. He prayed before he called the disciples. He prayed before the major miracles. He prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane before his crucifixion. Jesus always made time to pray. Now, if we were... So, little soapbox moment. If we were to be honest in self-reflection, how many of us in here could say that that actually describes us with that level of prayer life? Do you pray before big events in your life? Do you pray before small events in your life? I've told y'all this before, and I honestly believe this to be 100% true, that prayer is one of the most abused gifts of Christians today. We hardly ever take advantage of it, or when we do, it's the wishing well approach. In fact, I go back to this. Of all the things that the disciples asked Jesus to teach them how to do you know the one thing they asked him to teach them to do? Lord, teach us to pray. Luke 11:1. It's not, Lord, teach us to preach. Lord, teach us to study and evangelize. Lord, teach us to go and carry out the commission. Lord, teach us to walk this way. Lord, teach us to pray. We want to learn how to pray like you do, Jesus, because they saw his commitment to prayer. So we're told that Jesus, he arose early in the morning. He's human. You know he's tired. He has to be sleepy. No doubt exhausted after a long night of just onslaught healing miracles. And he gets up early. He leaves the group behind, goes off by himself, and he spends this time alone with God. But it's not going to go unnoticed. Verse 36 and 37. And Simon and those who were with him, they're searching for him. When they found him, verse 37, they said to him, everyone is looking for you. Now, you read that and you miss some of the tone in this. Again, they're not using exclamation marks like we do. They don't have emojis. They're not going to have an angry face after the statement to get the point across. But this is an emphatic statement saying, Jesus, they're looking for... What are you doing? Everybody's trying to find you. Why are you out here? It's a very dramatic statement that they're making. Everyone is looking for you. But we're going to go to Luke's account once again. And listen to what Luke records. Luke 4, verse 42. Now when it was day, he departed and went into a deserted place, and the crowd sought him and came to him. Now that's what we just said, right? But listen to the end that Luke adds for us. And tried to keep him from leaving. They're trying to hold Jesus there. They're going to try to stop Jesus from leaving. Well, good luck. But, I mean, he's magic, right? I mean, he's doing miracles. They need to keep him to themselves. But I want you to think about this question. And again, I'm trying to be delicate with this. What was Jesus' purpose in coming to the earth and performing miracles? What's the reason behind this? Is that why God took on flesh to come and wow our pants off with miracles, wow our socks off? That's not the case. So I want to talk just briefly, again, this is a little bit of a soapbox moment here, because Mark's emphasis is all about miracles. So I want to talk for just a minute about the miracles. You go way back in time, back into the Old Testament, you're going to find that there have been miracles from the beginning of the Bible. Healers and soothsayers in the world, these types of people that would claim to be able to perform all different miracles. They could heal the sick. They would take people's money in the process in exchange for miraculous healing. They're accusing Paul of the same thing in the New Testament. Well, he's a shyster. He's come to just take your money. We have people like this in the world today, and it absolutely infuriates me.
I think they're the lowest people out there, personally. You have to be pretty low to get rich by lying to people in their weakest and most vulnerable times. And you can watch these, and I've watched a few of them, and it's just my blood boils. But you can watch these TV evangelists, and they're on TV, and they've got a line full of people. There's one, I don't remember if it was Benny Hinn, or I think it was Benny Hinn. But he's over taking off his jacket. I mean, he's just smacking people with his jacket. And I mean, they're falling out. They're apparently healed. And I thought about doing a demonstration. I was going to get Jason to come up here, and I was going to just smack him with my jacket and see if he was healed. But I didn't think it'd be appropriate to do in church. But it's online, and they're falling. And it's funny. You watch this. You never see a person up there missing an arm. He smacks them with a jacket, and the arm pops out. But they're up there with some major ailment. He get hit with a jacket, or he smacks them in the forehead, and all of a sudden they're healed. And every now and then they'll kind of pan the audience. And one time they did, I saw a guy sitting over here in a wheelchair. I'm like, well, why isn't he on the stage? And I get it. If this was a real thing, I would pray for it. Lord, let me have the gift of healing. It'd be great. I'd get my truck, I'd hook my camper up, we'd go to every hospital, everywhere I could stop and find, and hospitals would be empty. Children's, Lebanon, the first place I go. Every one of them will be empty. Would you like to guess the absolute last place you're going to find a miraculous healer today? In a hospital. Because they can't do what they claim to be able to do, which is why when you see them on TV, it's their selected people that make it. Again, nobody's ever missing an arm and it's healed. You got people today that claim to have prophetic gifts, and God speaks to them through prophecy. And I've got a guy, I've worked with him for years now. He's not with me all the time, he travels, but I've been around him now for over 15 years. And he's hard in this. He believes this. And so I've asked him this question. But does that mean that the Bible is not complete in the revelation? Oh, no, it's complete. Then why would there be new prophecies? Tongues, of course, are a big one. Everybody loves to have the idea of speaking in tongues. And I get the biggest kick out of watching some of these videos where you see people that are speaking in tongues, they're running up and down the aisles and just going crazy. I'm going, I don't know what they just got hit with, but I don't think it's the Holy Spirit. It's all over the internet. I mean, you can see these things. And I tell you all this because I want you to see why a false teaching like this is so dangerous, because what they want you to do is send your money in. That's what you're supposed to do. You send your money in when you're in need, when you're sick, and they're going to send a blessing to you. They're going to pray for you. I'm going to go to God. As a preacher, and it's funny people that think this, as a preacher, I have a direct line of communication to God, apparently. Well, I have the same direct line of communication that you do, is prayer. And then you do that, and then all of a sudden you're not healed. Now what happens? Well, I did all the right stuff. Why didn't God heal me? God must not care. God's unable to help. Well, God never promised the miraculous abilities would continue. God never even promised that we would all live a good and healthy life. In fact, God's promise is that we're going to die. It's appointed man wants to die. All the while we forget the meaning behind the miracles, that they are to affirm the message. That's what Jesus said his purpose was to come, to preach the message. Well, that's what he says in verse 38. He said to them, I know it's kind of hard, so I had to get off that. I'll sit here for the next hour and go over that. That gets my blood boiling. All right, verse 38. He said to them, let us go into the next town that I may preach there also. And there it is. Because for this purpose I have come forth. Well, wait a minute. Jesus didn't come for the purpose of blowing people's minds with miracles. I mean, we're talking about and covering here a miraculous onslaught of what he's doing here. No. Jesus came to preach the gospel. Luke says he came to bring good tidings. He came to preach the word to all people. He had no desire to become the physical king. He had no desire to wow people's socks off. He came to preach. So what does that mean for us today? This is as far as we're going to go today, because Lord willing, next week, we have one of my favorite sections that we're going to get into, the healing of the leper. So I wasn't even going to dare try to combine those two. So as we look at this miraculous onslaught, what does it mean for us today? Well, the easy answer I put on the screen for you. We all need Jesus, right? But what do you need? That's the question. You see, they didn't want Jesus to leave because they thought they needed the miracles. He said, I'm going to leave because people need the Word. The Word is what brings about salvation through His sacrifice. So we don't need these great miracles. And that was their mindset. If He leaves, we lose the miracle. When He said, you had the greatest opportunity for the teaching. So we need Jesus. We need Jesus as our Lord and Savior, the one who has the power to save, the one that brought the miraculous abilities. But He tells you why He came: to preach, to seek, to save the lost. That was His purpose in coming. And so every time we read it, and Mark really emphasizes the covering of the miraculous abilities. But as he does, he's doing this. He's showing you this big, shiny, almost explosion of miracles. And right through the middle of it, he says, and Jesus said, let's go to the next village because I came to preach. Yes, all this is around it. And yes, this is the flashiness and this is the wow factor. He said, I came to preach. That's what this is about. It's about the Word. The Word is the power unto salvation. That's what it's about. So Mark just gave us this incredible overview of the power of Jesus, the power to save. So I want to encourage you all as we close out our services this afternoon to what this says is all we need is Jesus. That's exact truth. All we need is Jesus. So I want to encourage you, when you look at the miraculous ability of Jesus, when you see His purpose, that He would heal all, but He would preach to them. He wanted them to be saved, not just physically, spiritually. He came to seek and save the lost. So I want to encourage you again. We celebrate with Brother Dwight now this afternoon, but if there's anyone else in need as we close out our services, I want to encourage you. Brady's going to lead us in an invitation song. If you need prayers of the congregation, we would be glad to do that with you at this time. Or if you're in need of answering the gospel call as well, I want to encourage you, whatever you're in need of, come as we stand and we sing this invitation song.